Have a good lunch. Not time to fall asleep. It's very cold there. It's freezing. Good. When we feel like that cold, then also we can remember the cold room. Cold room is maybe double colder than here. Also we mentioned, we develop our compassion like that kind of situation. If you really see, then you can develop compassion for others. Example, the birds. The birds live outside. Then how they can get the food, how they live their life, they can call. The Buddhism say, not just looking for all some birds, some they call. If I am and the bird, how can I deal? When we meditation, for example, hell drum. Usually we, people doesn't like to hear about that, but we say, if I really burn that, burn. I really burn that, how I feel. Usually we don't see hell drum, where the hell drum. You don't need to look very far away, we just check the wild animals, how they have more difficult lives. Example, the animal who eat the grass, you can see the family member, one always looking, eat a little bit, looking, the others, they always feel someone to come to the kill. Like he said, if I was there like that, how can I do it? Then in the fish, in the ocean, the fish, all the fish, the big ones eat small ones, right? The big ones food is the fish, right? Therefore, if we born there, how can I deal there? We have nothing much proof I'm not born there, right? Example, someone say, after you die, where are you going? If you believe, future life, if anyone has 100%, I will burn bird back to human being. No, right?
If we are to die soon, are we confident that we will born as a human being in our next life?
And
so we have to really generate the causes that will enable us to born as a human being in our future life, and we have to do it now. When we think about the harvest in autumn, we have to start thinking back in the spring what seed we planted, because it's related to what we did in the spring that leads to all the harvest and the yield in autumn. And so sometimes I feel people wondered, Buddhism is like there are a lot of threatening and scary stories when we teach Buddhism.
그 내가 어떻게 너무 말어.
So the importance of talking about these consequences, the main point for doing that is to really let us know if we do this, there is that kind of consequences. And once people knew that, then they will be more cautious about engaging in this negativity. That's the main reason, to prevent people falling into these negative realms.
근데 강에 요사게 내가 강에 요바 시바이나 강에 요사들 만들어 답정도 지거로.
When there is a problem, before we finding any solution, first it's really important to really identify the problem, define the problem. Having defined the problem, then we will look for a solution, and a solution will be more reachable. And so the issue here is defining the problem is a very important step in finding a solution.
대단 로바를 두나라 당한도 제선 로바를 두요래. 대라야 덴도섬 당겐도 섬로. 아니 당 겐도나니 냐와 이닥세데 만도 통고 말다. 던로 만도 뭐 시기여러 와서. 근데다 만도 미 다도 소비던로 당 다도 마소비던로 간디지나야. 간지 다도 소비던로는 라와요 말레스. 다도 마소비던로는 아니 지금 가디 임바나 제 야만의 지금 세로고 예매 야만의 지금 산로고 예매 가지 세나장장 전에 대대 받더니 작은 와서 다 땡간주고 반 통해야 되지 거다 근데 냐와다 예단인 간도 통해 막 거야 하고만 나서 대 알레 라먹었지 그지 되노로지 깨워 있나 와
And so as a human being, we can observe certain things, and certain are not observable for us. For example, there are 6 realms in a cyclic existence, and the 3 are like a tendo, the better one, and then the 3 ngendo with the lower realms. So among the 3 lower realms, we cannot observe the hells. And the ghost realm is not really directly observable to our mind. But we can observe the sufferings of the animal realm. Within the animals, there are 2 types of animals. One is wild animals, which is not subject to human control. And then there are animals which is more like a pet, controlled by human beings. Among the animals which is subject to human control, you can always observe that they lack the freedom. They pretty much has to follow what the owner desire. And so there's obviously a lack of freedom among these animals. If you look at the animals in the wild field, we always observe that they're constantly living in fear of being killed by other animals, by humans, in fears of being eaten alive by other animals. And so we can observe the sufferings in animal realm. Although we cannot observe the sufferings in hells and so on, but there are, we can draw this kind of experience of the sufferings of the animals. And and so we can see the sufferings of the animal realms, and usually when we define the state of animal, and the animals are considered as a loon, they're dull, or they're not smart, and they are ignorant, and they are like not aware of what their surrounding is, the mok.
배차잖아 아니 소소다 보고야 다 소소 세사 다 마세 세세로 세사가 사자 튀는다 다 그도 하고 튀는 하고 말때 냠도 러셔 그러와 나도 민다나 세서 저거 하고는 가서 만들어 답이 제가 와서 파트에서는
when we say the animals lack the intelligent, when the human, the owners take the animals to a butcher's house, the animals wouldn't know that they're being taken to be killed. But human beings, we have the intelligence, we can, infer the knowledge, and we would know. But for the animals, they're not really intelligent enough to know even they're being killed.
Tendriza ane tendru dungachi. Ane yedala ane karo tikongo dunga. Ro. Ro tiwa do kombo ore tobe dunga ro. Ane nyawala charanga dunga. Tendriza ane ngendo som kanajina da dunga res.
So if you think about the sufferings in the lower realms, constantly there are a lot of sufferings. If you think about the hunger ghost, there's always, the sufferings from starvation and thirst. If you think about the sufferings of the hells, there's suffering from the excessive heat or the sufferings from excessive cold.
Oro tendriza teshita ta dendro sam mo la lama yin ro. Nda ngazo mi dendro yim kje na ngazo mi la tanri wo chiu me do ta ngazo mta na mi che de res ro. Kadina chodo yo. 소소 메트나라 땅가 데리다가 강에 치우면서 마셔도 지용도 왔어요.
So we just talked about the sufferings of the lower realms. If you look at the sufferings of the higher realms, including human birth, the god, and also demon, also a demigod, and if you look at the sufferings among the human beings, and we do not see a happy people around us. There's a constantly suffering pervading among the human being.
텔라야 가서 제체가 배가 말에 왕체가 배가 말에 코르마가 배가 말에 가지 잠만도 장장 요르서 나도 밀레나.
If you look at the human suffering, they're constantly going through suffering, and the sufferings are not being able to cure through wealth, through power, and through the gatherings or through the family members. You constantly see suffering among the human beings too.
안에 라마일라 안에 자도거든요. 라라 아니 가죠. 라제르베동아. 그러고
And then the gods and the demigods, they also experience.
라란 지대보거든 같다.
And for the god, the realm of is it like how you translate the god, the realm of the god, or God's realm, and the God's realm, they experience this like a prediction of the death, or when their lifespan is consumed, then the death emerges, and they have become so aware of that they're dying. So the sufferings from the death. Among the demigods, they constantly the sufferings through the jealousy and through conflict.
어디에다 가면 로어를 강하지나자 둥하고 하셔인 바래. 다 텔레 마치에 탑시에 가려는 샤주고 셈고면 이제고 마 샴바고면. 어다때 발신 도고 녀는 제대 때래. 대체나 근데 텔레께 먹고 산제에서 자는 거. 산제에서 돼. 양지 사실 전부 로서 이렇게 말해. 가지 수수 산 수수고 셈 묘모다 가디 잡아나. 아니 다 가지 수수 셈 잡아. 만서다 가디 전화다 산제에서 자는 거로. 다 집어넣으면 묘모라다 다 와치 저처럼 간지 샘 저와도 가디잖아 다 고르봐 샘 묘모도 가디는 다 와도 그랬어 근데 샘 저와도 그러나 사지 자는 그랬어 나도 세니 받는 티바래 다시 못다 해라 다 거도 고아라니라고 하다 간지 샘 묘모도 자나 다 와도 샘 간즈 대지 참아 샘이 참아다 자나 다도 자나 아니 산지 자는 거래서. 가지 말이피 몸발에 가지 사나 산지 자는 거래서.
And so, if you look at the reality of samsara, basically what we have seen and observed is the sufferings at all different realms. And so, in order to really put a stop on these sufferings, we engage in the practice of compassion, loving kindness, and bodhicitta, and then engage in the practice of wisdom emptiness. And when we are able to really gain our realization through the practices of compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom emptiness, and then we really put a permanent stop to this suffering. So usually when our mind is become free of affliction, that means we attain to liberation from the samsara. And then when we totally attain the overcome the self-grasping and become clear of the obscurations, and that means we have attained full enlightenment. So I asked Geshe, being free of affliction, is that equal to liberation or attainment of full Buddhahood? Geshe said, among the scholars who are engaged in a debate, there's a big difference between a mind that is free of affliction versus a mind that's free of obscurations. And so the one way of defining full enlightenment is attained when our mind is become totally free of ignorance or the distorted view. And so, are we enlightened yet? We are still. There's still a lot of things that we don't know yet. Therefore, really being totally master in all kind of level of knowledge, without doing that, enlightenment is not within our reach yet. And so, as we talked about the sufferings, and to really put a permanent stop to these sufferings, the Buddha taught many methods and ways. And so one of the methods is really that we contain or control our mind. We overcome the faults and the stains of the mind. We're going to now read the 24 the verses. Can you read the 24, please?
Having understood this, out of confession, I am indolent afterwards. When it is time to die, tremendous grief will rear its head.
I've just talked about this. And so it's really important to know the suffering and then to also learn the method which will prevent the suffering. And then you engage in the practices. If you didn't do that, and one day when death falls on our heads, then we will really have a very strong regret. Please, can you read 25?
So if my body burns for a long time, if the fires hell which are difficult to bear, inevitably my mind will be tormented by the blazing fires of unbearable remorse.
And so this is reminding us when we have the opportunity to practice Dharma and prevent all these kind of downfalls. If we didn't do that, then we will regret when we fall into the lower realms and meet suffering. For example, a prisoner would really regret a lot once he realized what he did, and especially when he realizes, he or her, that he had the choice. So generally, when people are under the influence of affliction and they commit crime, and then they would go to prison, and then they really regret a lot that they didn't do something about it before it's really started. And I do that when I get a ticket. I see, drive fast, and then the police give me tickets for my speeding, and then I say, I shouldn't have been driving that fast.
Do you guys have that? Right. But maybe New don't many car. You guys. Maybe you're parking some wrong place. They give ticket. He said, "Oh, I shouldn't park that." What is today? That kanji tanda na cheyo des. Ta shuma tel hon ta sama chezama ne cheyo mare thro.
So the essential advice we're getting here is right now we have the choice. And make a decision, a proper decision. Once we fall into the lower realms, then it seems like the choice is lost.
Yes. Having found by some coincidence this beneficial state that is so hard to find, if not all happy knowledge, I am once again led into hells.
So this is again referring to the choices that we have. Right now, we have this most amazing opportunity. If we didn't do something about it, we will fall down to lower realms, and then we will regret. So that's the essence of the verse.
Then, as though I were confused by mantra, this mind will be reduced to nothing. Even if I do not know what confused me, what is there inside me?
다 네가 간전 담으면 나들은 생각들이 다 들이잡네요. 심충도 같은 데 여러 보스. 간전 된대지네 뭐봐 제세가는 먼저. 알아봐. 된대가 소소 샘든 trune라 샘도 답고 만져봐지. 아니 내 뭐가 소소 맞이네. 아니 다 소소 다 사실 도와들 봐 추송하다. 다 소소 노루 쳐오래요. 나 내는 조반하고 송도는 봐.
And this is also referring to the regret that we would have. For example, with some kind of a magic or black magic, that spells kind of confusion in your mind stream, and then that leads you to kind of all kind of negative areas. And by the time you awake, it's too late to go back because you have been misled. And so this is just like what we do when we realized that we have the great opportunity to do something, but we didn't do it and let our affliction lead the way, and then eventually we will regret. Then we will go to verse 28. 28 is now saying, what causes all this misfortune, all these downfalls? And then now Shantideva is saying it is affliction like anger, hatred, craving, and so on. They are leading us to this wrong path.
What?
Or 28. Since enemies such as hatred and craving have neither arms nor legs, and are neither courageous nor clever, how have I been used like a slave by them?
그래. 다 가는 나조라 지 두자 징에게 뇨모데 강바도 라바들은 소녀들 기내려고 말해 들어와. 나도 동아 땅에 나도 다 저원근데 나도 저런 나도 소지 공종 아자 시나 데레스. 근데 대라 강바도 라바도 개요 말 들어와. 소소도 냠도 지니. 가지 소소 되게 욕보 나지니 지는 저 되게 그래 들어와.
This verse is talking about the how affliction works to really mislead us. Our affliction didn't have powerful weapons. They didn't have strong arms and legs. Yet they're able to slave us, mislead us, and take us to the wrong path.
들어와. 답배 차샤바이 나스. 간지 가서 내차 시동 공종 아자도 욕보 나지니 데레스 라고 그래서. 대주 가르치지레스.
For example, we become the slave of the hatred, craving, and ignorance. And they have this kind of a power to lead us and to take us and to control us.
간지 배나 공종하고 지 공종가도 간이 오고 있나 공종도 제 나와 있나 가서 라면 봐 공종 그런 가르치지 그런 가르치려는 것도 제대로 잘 하는데 이제 시에다 이게 저담 진 남자다 찾아 공종 딱 그래 가르치지는 어려워서 근데 가서 공종 라면도 시작해 그러더라.
For example, if you look at the power of the anger, right now we are totally consumed or controlled by the anger. We didn't have that much choice. When we are under the influence of anger, we write things we didn't mean to. We, speak in certain ways and certain means we didn't mean to. Basically, we lack the total control. But on the other hand, it is the anger which is controlling us.
아니 내차 세대 간지 수술을 가래나 톰도 로지로 와 수술을 이까지면에 될 누구네들 라버 조타베 로지로 와 근데 대서 톰도 제가 로지로 와 아니 되게 땅 앞에 거는데 그런데 얘기 거는데 간지 수술하고 막 진도로 와.
And then if you look at the, like the power of the cravings, we didn't have very much choices. Basically, we have these strong cravings, and that lead us to, have a desire and lust after, this or after that. And we really didn't have that much choices, but we are being driven by the cravings. And for that, the consequences, is enormous.
근데다 간지 배나 공로 따위 소소 캐나라 피게 다치기도 좋고 캐나라 가게 문제네. 먼저 송조에 손으로 지는 간지 간조 공주 만들 동아트가 요래서
the angers, they really pretend that they're there to protect us. And the anger really comes to us as a friend and as a protector, but still in reality is harming us.
근데 배나 공로 세대가 캐나라 지가 계좌 야부시가 문제 지금 남자가 또 이거 문제 없음. 근데 그 삼도 있죠. 아니 대라식 봐 갑자기 잔도 그 로지 용도 와서 어떤지 지는 것도 파티는 것도
If we look at how anger drives us, initially the anger kind of, if we're having a problem with another individual, the anger is giving us a message that that person didn't like us, that person had some kind of a problem with us, and the anger encourages us to really take a stand, to really get back to that person. And this is how anger is kind of driving us driving us, or it's pushing us.
근데 이제 간지 내차 세당 공조도 가르진 내주나 공조지 강바용에 라바용에 맨다도 되니 경우 말이지. 캐나라 간도지, 캐나라 저와인도지니 여기 캐나라 구도 완도선에 캐나라 동안냥 그래서 해놓죠.
So the message here is the afflictions like craving, anger, and ignorance. They present themselves as our friend. And they present themselves to us like our protector, someone who really takes care of us. And through this kind of a disguise, they come and harm us.
공로 마세 병렬이야. 같이 공로 마세 병렬 하시다 공로기 님도 하거나 공로 마세 때 방을 해서 아니 근데 냠을 봐야보나 공로 세비컬라고 다 저는 좀 말했죠. 날내 찡들에 다세 막가야 답시 지고다 다들 칼레카오레스 사비컬라.
And so for the practitioners, it's really important to be aware of the faults of anger. Before the anger arises in our mind stream, we have to contemplate on the faults of the anger constantly before we really get into this anger. In that way, we become more cautious and enable us to prevent anger. But for the advanced practitioners, they not only do that, they also continue when anger rises in their mind stream. They are able to recognize anger and they are able to really criticize the anger, saying, you are, like a very, they're able to tell the anger that you are there to harm me. Although you pretend you to be my friend, but I know you came or you arise so that you will harm me. And for the advanced practitioners are able to do that. But this is maybe a little bit still too far for us. For our purpose, it's really important to contemplate on the negative side of the anger to start with. If we think carefully, questioning, do angers and jealousy and pride harm us or not? Think about it critically. If we think about it, as soon as anger, cravings and so on arises in our mind, it immediately makes us and our friends unhappy. That's the truth, right? From this analysis, we know that anger and other afflictions are harming us.
While they dwell within my mind, at their pleasure they cause me harm. Yet I patiently endure them without any anger. This is an inappropriate state, and patience is a contemplative state.
And so this verse is really reminding us that we had a wrong type of patience. We are practicing patience and anger, which is really causing us a lot of problem. And this is the wrong way of practicing patience. In fact, we should have been really challenging anger. Even before anger arises, we should have been, or we could have been practicing so that we are aware of that. If we follow the affliction, the craving, anger, and jealousy, and pride, and so on, and the result is, if we follow according to their wish, then we will suffer a lot because they will take us to the wrong path. Consequently, we are the one have to suffer. For example, if a family decided to gather together and have a meal together to really have fun, and everyone's excited to this gathering, and then either the father or mother or a member of the family, become really angry for some kind of a minor thing, and this anger would really destroy that happy mood prevailing among the family members.
What is
Should even all the gods and anti-gods rise up against me as my enemies, they cannot lead me to nor place me in the fires of relentless torment.
And so here saying no one has power really take us to hell, including the god, the anti or the demigods, even all of them rise together at the same time and challenges me. They are still powerless to take me to the lower realm. On the other hand, the anger has that potential.
But this foe of the powerful afflictions, in an instant can cast me there, which when met will cause not even the ashes of Mount Meru to remain.
So who has the power to take me to this unbearable lower realm? It is our affliction, that enemy, which has the power to really take us all the way down, just like a big fire. When the fire started, then it has the potential to burn everything around that environment. Likewise, the affliction has that power to destroy peace in my mind. And so generally, when we think about enemy or think of enemy, we immediately think about another sentient being being our enemy. But that's mistaken. The real enemy, for us, is the affliction, especially the root of the affliction. That is the self-grasping mind, the mistaken view, the ignorant, that totally the dull mind, which is our main enemy. And then under the influence of these kind of root afflictions, the mistaken views and so on, the cravings, the anger, the other afflictions become its kind of a servant and putting us in a great trouble.
All other enemies are incapable of such length of time as my afflictions, the long time enemy with neither beginning nor end.
이모르셔 내가 말했어. 가야 리히나 콜로자네. 놈이 다세 때 말해. 아니 멋지 뭐랍네 말네 되게 다고 매워서 받나. 그 뭐랍네로 가서 자고. 뭐랍네 먼저 가서 내가 지그래 해서 해놓지.
So this verse is really telling us some of the qualities of our enemy, our fellow human or sentient being, what we consider as our enemy, and they are short-lived. At most, they will live up to 100 years, and then they will disappear. And like that, the affliction, our real foe or enemy, that always stays with us for generation to generation. And so that's the differences between our foe, the true foe, the affliction, versus what we consider as our fellow human enemies.
와, 어다테 되지. 아니다 쇼로가 소지된다. 덤바른로 떼셔나 탐주 팬다. 아니 소스 말이지. 그래서 거다. 덤바른로 떼셔봐. 탐주 팬다 되잖아. 뉴모 때문에 되잖아. 시시 동안 넣어셔야지. 아니 뭐야.
If I agreeably honor and rely upon others, all will be not benefit and happiness. But if I rely upon these afflictions, in return I will be harmed by suffering.
다 네가 가르잖아. 싫다고. 아니 소소 봐 줘보는 거지. 녀마도 이렇게 녀마나 그 줘보는 거래서. 녀모도 가세 파 셈다 이양아치와 대 삼지 녀모도 말로 녀모도 휴체로 그래서.
This verse is again talking about the qualities, the different qualities between sentient beings, relying on sentient beings, or they're treating sentient beings versus affliction. If we treat well of fellow sentient beings, they will return us with greater, treatment. On the other hand, if we treat affliction with good intentions and with fondness and so on, the return is even more devastating. It does more harm to us, and we empower them almost to make further suffering upon us.
미카지 콘로사 되겠다. 가디나 콘로스 가리 사대가 소주 채마다나 콘로사 주죠. 가지 가디나 콘로지 않으러 들이도 와서. 저도 갑자기 잡아 콘로사나 딱 그런 이 와서 고샤샤인다 고 장랑로 이러고 간징가도 장랑 쇼사이 넣어서 콘로 난내차 셔다 뜨문 가져서 바깥에 좁어치 왔던지 근데 고동에도 마지 고동에도 가서 마지 왔더니 잠으로 마용 그래서.
So here, this is very important advice. When we really refuse to challenge our affliction, and if we just follow our affliction, you see in that lot among our friends, there are certain people who are so easy to provoke. They easily get angry, easily upset. And that because they never used antidote to overcome the affliction, but instead they have been kind of giving up to anger and let anger be their response. And when you do that, then you constantly find themselves in trouble, in conflict with their family members and friends.
다 된소 용하게 싸워도 소리나 나 삼대대 나도 들어요. 돈도 강가 용서 싸워대 나 삼대.
If we go deeper and look at what is the root of all these afflictions, what kind of gifts of affliction are raised, it is the self-grasping mind.
나 공존되지 임바이나 내 시반나지 제마서 나 그와도 제금도 나를 야고 제금도 삼아시 내 차로나 나를 지고운도 나를 대고운도 삼아로 그러와 대내도 단장제 간제 싸워대 나세 두대 그랬어.
Yes, the root of the affliction is the self-grasping, this strong I-ness, the clinging to the I-ness. This is so obvious. If you look deeper at anger, we get angry because I'm not treated well. I'm not taken seriously. My advice is not taken seriously. With this kind of expectation, and the association with our I-ness, we get angry. If you look at the craving, that I want that, I wanted to get this, I want to reach there. Again, it's associated with the I. So it's so obvious. If you go a little bit deeper with affliction, we immediately associate affliction with this self-grasping mind. And therefore, we see there's a problem in the seed itself. When the problem is remained at the seed level, whatever a fruit it gives rise to have a problem. This is so obvious. If we plant a poisonous tree, the yield, the fruit it gives to is poisonous. On the other hand, if we plant a medicinal herb, it gives like a medicine or herbs. So basically, it depends on what seed we have. So when we check that self-grasping mind, the I-ness, and when we really investigate properly, we wouldn't find that I as we believed it exists there. If we were to do meditation to investigate where is that I-ness of the person, let's say Bill. If Bill meditates and look for where is the Bill or which is the Bill, who is Bill, you start investigating. Your head is not Bill, the body is not Bill, the leg is not Bill, the hand is not Bill, his mind is not him, the Bill. So if we really do kind of a subtle investment, you wouldn't find the Bill or the person. Most of us here are familiar with this concept of a selflessness, the nature of the selflessness. So this is not shocking to you. But for someone who never, engaged in the study of Buddhism, this is shocking. Saying when you investigate, and then you would realize that there's no you or I. That's not possible because I'm walking, I'm eating, I'm talking. Yes, the Buddhists are not saying things are not exist. We're not talking about that. We're really challenging how things exist. We are saying things do not exist the way they appear to be exist. That's our kind of main argument. As an example, maybe we spend a minute to really investigate why is that I? You go through your body, you go through the house, you go through the temple to see where is that person I believe it is I. Just maybe do a self-investigation. Try to find where is I in that body. So I'm going to ask you a question. Is our head I or us? Is my head is I or not?
No, right? 당에 수보등하래 왜?
How about my body? Is that I?
아니 당에 샘등하래 왜?
Is my mind I?
그리고 내 샘랑도 나 샘랑도 특고는 배제된다고 그러고.
That's obvious. Usually we say my mind. We never say I mind.
enge shilo subo 빠빠댕아래 봤을 때 말아.
Is my skin I?
그래. 근데 다 나도 나날 고군도 날 내 지금도 날 야고 책임도 좀 드린 가데 가와도 없어. 지체나?
So if we investigate, where is that I which constantly are thinking I want that, and I need that, I have been harmed. But when you really, I have been the subject to abuse or so on. And if you really look at it and search for that I-ness,
근데서 나 요요로 왔어. 저도 그냥 kelle로 돼.
yeah, of course, there is a person, there is an I.
저도 다나 쇼게 나네 드린데 봐 공부제 내려 왔어.
I worked this morning. You came here for the teaching.
근데서 나 요요 시작이 누웠어.
There is, something which we describe, I. I is doing something.
근데서 다 가나 가와도 가네도 상가도 저거라고도 해서 주로 쓰라서 레바든 가래 봤어.
But then, if I investigate, more carefully, try to find where is that I, is my brain the I or not?
Right? Anyone find? Say, I'm the bell. Then which the bell? 근데 이다 도중에 삼다나 뭐네 가서 샘을 지가이 지금 나대 나지. 딴 것도 매번 테스트 롤 시작도 왔어.
When we do this type of meditation, then we realize that I'm not able to find that I, which I believe or which I thought was there.
근데 이자 나도 다 벤트다. 아는 공부를 저거야. 자신 하나 소리를 봤어. 제워 사면 처면 나가면 르면스. 다 처말에 사말에 매말에 르말에 나고다 가와래드나. 아니 다티 랜데 제워 컴도 디비셔스 송도 왔어.
So, when we talk about this, the nature of I, the great master, the Nalanda master Nagarjuna, he mentioned in the fundamental wisdom text. 자시로 말하지. 왜?
자시라.
기부선에 주면 디.
자시로.
네 지금도 기부선.
자시에 나를 지도 지대.
인지통인비.
어떤이가 지대.
인지통하래.
네.
Sorry, it's not the fundamental wisdom. It's a garland of what's the other one? Precious garland. Yes, in that the Nagarjuna mentioned that a person is not the water or the earth or the space, and person is not the four element. The person is not the six nature, and as he investigates where is that person. And then the answer was then, okay, if you are not able to find the person in your body, then what is person? And the answer is person is merely a collection of the come to the six elements. Come element, right? Is come element? Yes. A person is merely the collection or the association of these six elements. That's what we designated as a person.
근데 들이 감루 뜻하는 이유를 사지면은 좋아시 대가 농가 남시 죽다 지혜래서 와. 단단히 듣는 바지 대 말했어 와. 팔레슈에 아니 감숨 말슈 감숨 대투인데 말았더니 다 개부다 그래서 주.
So when we talk about elements, the six elements, there are two different types of elements that we usually account for. One type of counter element, the sixth element, is the four elements plus the space and the mind. And the association or the collection of these six elements is like a six elements. But here, in the Nagarjuna's text, when he talks about the 6 elements, he's not referring to these 4 elements, but he's referring to the 3 elements coming from your mother's side, 3 elements coming from your father's side. And that's the 6 elements.
Palashui, Rupa, Gang, Tri, Pajimbai, Koa. Palashui, Koa, Rupa, Gang. Tesumji, Malashui, Cha, and the Pashi Shai, and the Sha, Cha, Papa. That did not have 10 years,
so the 6 elements that Nagarjuna is mentioning here is the 3 elements coming from the paternal side, 3 elements coming from the maternal side. And the 3 elements associated with the paternal side is the bone, marrow bone, and drops or the sperms. And then the 3 elements coming from the mother's side, the maternal side, is the blood, flesh, and skin. And that's what I thought, but I'm not so sure. Please check. And so the essential message here is a person is designated or labeled or imputed for the 5 the aggregates, the collection of the 5 aggregates. We consider is or we designate it as a person.
What is that? Mamulagmeta, Tanda Shiloni Subsidigar Rogaro. Rosare. Tate Titana Tanda Dindas. Some subject Teta Yeri Jincha Drajava. Nupi, Soram Pivi, Jechiva, Trijati, Mother was Daka Nilangebra, Nen Chana, Kovan Jimmy, Gawakarangeras.
While in cyclic existence, how can I be joyful and unafraid? If in my heart I certainly prepare a place for this incessant enemy of long duration, the sole cause for the increase of collections of harms.
What Titana Tananga the Panji, Susu Stemna Netting the dancing under the race. Te Susanilla Nicala Tanga to Chiu cover your Marskaje. Susu Yam to Chanata come to Umar was.
So here in this verse 33 is saying, as long as we are attached to this self-grasping mind, there would not be any opportunity for us to be at peace or happiness, because we are constantly living with our enemy, the enemy within.
What? Some social but then Chipachi Songa Chipachi, could be sorry so my Nyasosa. And the surgery Shemanji on the Donna, Kati, Lonin Chabanava, Nena, Dala, they were Kalayos.
How shall I ever have happiness if in the name of attachment within my mind there dwell the guardians of the prison of cycle existence, who become the slayers who kill me in hell and so forth?
And 33 and 34 and 35 are very similar in meaning.
Kanji, dancing out of the Semdra Nedayona, and it you cut in the Yomari, tap the Okadneomari. What to some of us?
And basically saying, when we are living in that self-grasping mind, the animal within, there, as long as we are with that self-grasping mind, and there's no opportunity whatsoever at all for us to be free from suffering.
Okay, now we stop. Break time. Okay, we come back maybe 3:20. It's okay? 3:20, come back. Until there you have some tea, talk. Okay, a little test.
Oh. We go to verse 36.
Donum, the much juber, Nimos,
Number 36. Therefore, as long as this enemy is not
overwhelmed
before my very eyes, I shall never give up exerting myself against it. Self-important people who become angry even at slight short-lived harm will not go to sleep until it is overcome.
The tongue on Zochi, Mudega, Dunga Chazan, Manzochi, Dunga Jenge, Tatso, Boss Rateta, Numo, but Tanganzo Shi, Hinderwa, Mandungi Hako, Netherwa, Tanumo the Mega Tapsi Tangi, Kadem Kali Jago, and Tangi, Yamo the Meva Tapsi Yin, the Kali Jagi is and
So in this verse, basically now we are really making a strong assertion that we wanted to get rid of that boss, which really, which is the affliction, and that is bringing us all these troubles. And now I know that it is the affliction that is giving me all these headaches and sufferings, and I wanted to get rid of it. So it's more like a determination here.
가래서는 네가 녀몬 네기 아니 간도 개원다다 새롭 덤제도 간이 지보매봐 아라야마 되고 로마 되고 지금도 왔을 텐데자 딱고 노와칭에 쪼드레셔 되네다 고매와 지금도 땅에 깔리 자기 이세는 존지 돌거면
it is this enemy which really comes with me for generation to generation, causing me trouble. And this is giving trouble and sufferings to my friends and to myself. And so I really wanted to get rid of it. So here, now we start generating determination. For example, in this life, because of the affliction, when someone cross us with the slightest kind of annoyance, we immediately start really challenging and facing up to that person. It's because of the affliction we're doing that. For example, because of the affliction, someone said a slightest kind of unpleasant word against us, we immediately start responding to that person. Sometimes we try to do indirectly, or we become skillful getting back to that person. But regardless, we do make this effort to get back to that person because of the influence from the affliction. And the reason we really go after these people primarily is because we feel that I have been abused, I have been mistreated, and I have been slandered. And for that reason, we go back to these people. And so, as we can see, the affliction really plays an important role in our daily life. And whether we sleep, whether we are sleeping, or when we are walking, when we're going somewhere, the afflictions are constantly with us. And because of that, we constantly suffer. So here now we're making the determination, I really wanted to now challenge the affliction and get rid of that. And therefore, all the sufferings that we go through are coming from our mind.
뇽모베 셈티 디근 저와이마 아니 산지 좀 내도 소마를 했어.
In one of the chapter, I think it's chapter 8, in the concentration chapter, Shantideva said, who created the hell? Who created all these tormenting realms? And the Buddha Shakyamuni said, these tormenting realms, the hells and so on, were created by your mind because your mind is under influence of affliction. You engage in negative deeds. As a result, you suffer in that tormenting realms.
아니 다도 원고도 수수 실로고 다티거나 다세는 다 줘야 말이야. 대리 다 니스나 산니수시. 나니 니제스나 디 진가 주지까지 다 줘야 말이야. 실로고 다 대래 수수 셈도잖아. 다처럼 때와도 직발해서.
And you cannot really get rid of enemies. If you overcome one enemy today, there will be more to overcome the next day. And so they're ceaseless. They cannot be really put to stop. But on the other hand, you can eradicate your affliction. Once you eradicate your affliction, then at the same time, you have eradicated all the source of enemies.
배차잖아. 아니 강배로 당가 사고로 고마잖아요. 대사 강바 마사지다. 사차상 갈아지 빠바로 요서나. 너도 요야 빠바 나가 말고 왔어. 대래 소주 한국 샵주고 요서나. 아니 자동 요가도 집어로 왔어. 배도 손을 와.
And the example we give that is if when you wanted to walk on the ground and it's very painful and very tough to walk on earth without putting something on your shoes, you cannot cover the entire earth with a smooth cover. But on the other hand, if you wear shoes, cover your feet with a leather or some rubber thing on the bottom, then you can walk on the earth. Likewise.
대가르나 수수 샘된도 잡아이나 아니 다쳐서 매바찬도 그랬어. 간지 수술 막아와 차서 수술 내와팅이 매와찬도 그랬어.
And likewise, if you are able to tame your mind, then you will naturally overcome all the enemies. Because once you really pacified your mind, then it also put a stop to all the source of the enemies.
아니 단단히 인가진 것도 쉬어야 마스. 지금 뭐지가 나도 짜지 답이 부수쳤. 근데 나도 짜지를 부수쳐 와인자 말이면 맞지 끊는다 봤어. 근데 말이면 맞지 끊는다마다 아니 몇 섬지. 더 아니 코베까지 둥어 섬지. 둥어 제외 둥어 차와등이 둥어 섬. 아니 좋다며 봐. 아니 냐는 것도 되고 그랬어요.
And so Lama Tsongkhapa put this beautifully in the three principles of the path. And Lama Tsongkhapa said that because of the self-grasping, we fall in the kind of ignorant stage, or we are misled, or our mind is distorted because of self-grasping. As a result, affliction rises. And as a result, we engage in negative deeds. As a result, we go through a lot of suffering, suffering like the three sufferings and so on.
아니 야 쉬운주나도 열어봤어. 아니 산지 좀 된데 다 산지에다 신사만도 현지된 장장치 그래서 시왕 알아서 돈 장장치 그래서 다 되니 제도마다 되니 단대 내단어도 가는 채워 가는 데서 간도 내단 되면 맞죠. 수수된 장장 삼대야 되겠어. 아니 통오다 산지 샹주선바도 현지된 장장 삼대반다 단다 또반 탈신에 관계가 지금 샤샤바단 좋아지면 그렇게 되어버려서
And also Shantideva mentioned in the way of Bodhisattvas that when you look at the differences between the Buddhas and the child, like ourselves, the ordinary beings, the differences are huge. The Buddhas are become the object of worship and someone who are totally liberated and attained Buddhahood because they have been, engaged in the practice of a Bodhisattva and taking care of other people. Their primary interest is really to look after the welfare of sentient beings. As a result, they attain all these wonderful qualities, whereas child beings like ourselves, we always kind of follow and pursue our own selfish interests. As a result, we go through a lot of troubles, from troubles to troubles, and there's no cease to all these sufferings.
아니 lama chope nalaya penchelo to shirwa arani chinta gba kinjigo manu chinta ide kinji chos aran chiban chinta da dunga chasangi tsawadres ye chiba chinta de yende chasangi tsawadres songdo was.
And also Panchen Lobsang Chogyam mentioned in the Guru Puja, Guru Yoga Puja, and that the self-cherishing mind is the source and the root of all the troubles and the sufferings, whereas the cherishing others, it becomes the source of all the wonderful and the great potentials, and greater qualities.
드리다다 젬베 샹주고 샘세의 징아도 저리 지게도 와이나 아니 드리 샹주 샘절에 가다들 샹주 샘바세 드리다다 지테 라모 끈지까지 샤자서 그렇게 저자는 거래서 아니 드방 하셔 봐도 다운도와 근데 양주 무서워 어디도 야 팽이거래서
슈트
근데 드방 가서 봐도 반 토친도 근데 양주 드바사도 무서워.
And so as mentioned yesterday, if we started taking care of other sentient beings through means of engaging in the study and the practice of bodhicitta, then we become bodhisattvas. Once we really become bodhisattvas, and then we become the object of worship by other beings, including the gods or the self-realizer and the hearers. The bodhisattvas become much sought and much kind of respected the practitioners. And because of that, because of practices of bodhicitta, and we are able to cleanse and purify all our negative deeds. And because of that, again, engaging in the practice of a bodhisattva, we are able to cease accumulating further negative deeds. And that, put a stop from being born in lower realms and so on. So these are all the wonderful benefit and quality of engaging in the practice of a bodhisattva.
내가 라사가 다니더라야 아니 기실라라 담아서 들어왔어 기실라라 담아 먼저 가든 기시와 아니 콘 참슈데브 가라야 가디나 지금 로박 손라시 딱 봐지야 실라 페딩이더라 쇼케 니고 가디나 페딩이시 근데 그런 거 삼단데 미치는 레메드 가디나 미치 바치자 근데 좀 레메드 강고는 치면 되면서 네 계시더라 저랑 소인 봤어 저랑 가졌는데 가디나 야보지네 가 피고 그네 가라도 제대로 저한테도 아니 그런 사실 되게 수많아도 나 갈치네 라마면 됐어 저랑 그 샹주 섬장자 곰도 왔어 저랑 샹주 섬장자 곰도 와서 되게 배가 같이네 라마면 됐어 저한테 그래 마피 람피 라마면 됐어 다들 샹주 섬이 배
So in one of the stories of the famous Geshe, the learned Tarpa, who composed the 8 verses of a mind training text, when he was meditating in the Lhasa area in Tibet, every day someone is delivering food and taking care of his needs. And this has been a really long time that a person or a being is really taking care of all his need. And then he started suspecting that this is really unusual because you don't see anyone in this area. And but in a very kind of timely manner, that this food and so on being delivered. And then one day he asked that person, saying, "Who are you? Because I don't see any beings here, and why are you doing this?" And the person said, I'm the protector, the spirit, the protecting spirit of this area. And because you're engaging in the practices of bodhicitta, I have no control, whatever. I, have to come here and, take care of you because you're engaging in the practice of Bodhisattva. So this is one example of, the benefit of practicing Bodhisattva way.
Okay.
So in the future, once you realize the bodhicitta, you may not need to go back to work.
This is for best chance, right? Oh, this is Teresa. Kadina chi shambada niji shanju tsuchi kiega tapshi chi ketopsa nudum suzu gom taures ro kale taures.
And therefore, we should really make a concerted effort to engage in the practice of compassion and loving kindness. We should really at least try.
And komna lewa ma tingida kan yo ma yin jatra ma chong ro.
And as mentioned, by Shantideva, that once you get used to certain things, nothing is difficult, nothing is impossible. And the only problem is that we never try, and we never really work hard to accomplish this kind of attainment. So in essence, we're saying here the affliction. We have to really destroy the affliction. And that comes from self-grasping mind. And so we have to do our best to reduce that self-grasping mind. At the same time, we have to do our best to increase compassion and loving kindness in our mind stream. And then we're going to read the 37 and 38 together because one leads to the other in terms of the content.
Raja Drangi Jensen Dala Teng Dunga Jantra Dunga Jancho Chichir Kangi Tang Yeche Jilu Major Michigus.
At the time of violent battle, vigorously desiring to comfort those afflicted ones who are naturally subject to suffering through death, men disregarding the pain of being pierced by spears and arrows do not withdraw until the goal is accomplished. Then what need to mention that I should not despair and be indolent, even if I am caused many hundreds of sufferings, when now I strive to definitely overcome my natural enemies that are the constant cause of all suffering.
Tade Europe temena shologa subject digi so subject tanda kardana and then ganzo ma da wachi jitega mala chi ma jamne kanji soso chi daja treja me ka jana soso kapte de chi seya tapshi kanji soso mandi pad so mazo bad kalajina segdo was te peretro ingole maja part tadenga tangazo mamu toendo was.
In the verse 37, this is very common. We see sadly when the war or battle broke out, and these, like soldiers tend to be so furious and so determined, so single-pointed mind that until they, win the battle, and they will really do their best to defeat their enemies. And you can see that a lot.
What did the Tashuloka? Subject the tongue, Andola, send the Nashimaka, do not think in Yumonde. Got a palm matter by the never so matter by the country. Kadina Torohim, Kadina Kalija, he said, don't know what it is.
Likewise, we really have to work very hard, be perseverances, to overcome and destroy our enemy, the affliction. Until our enemy, the affliction, is totally destroyed, we should not give up. So this is the advice we're getting from this verse. It's basically advising us that we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't be discouraged. So in Shantideva's text here, when we hear the benefit of engaging in the practice of a bodhicitta or bodhisattva, it's very powerful and so inspirational that we feel like, oh man, I can do that, and I really wanted to attain all these wonderful qualities. And then in the fourth chapter at the beginning, when it's talk about the consequences of breaking your commitment, and then you really start getting scared because you really didn't want to go through this kind of negative consequences. And in the past, when a Lama was teaching this very text in Tibet many years ago, and his disciple made the comment, when the Lama was talking about the benefit of a bodhicitta, I feel so inspired. I feel like this Lama is almost attain. I'm sure this Lama is going to attain enlightenment the way he talks about all the benefit, and I'm also going to get the benefit of that and going to attain my enlightenment with him. And then when the Lama started talking about the downfalls and negative side of a breaking commitment and what are the commitment, what are the negative deeds, and then I started feeling, oh my God, I'm going down really fast. And the Lama too, because I know one or two things what he did as well. So so we shouldn't be swayed by the subject. When we talk about the benefit, we get so inspired. Then on the other hand, when we talk about the downfalls, we get so discouraged. We shouldn't be to this kind of subject. We shouldn't be subject to this kind of mind. We should be really very unwavering.
Okay, that 나도 소개된다. 다 도매자이 마소 당와야. lila jandandava seshena donche desha yanda tsombaje dala dunga chishe noje yensirwa.
If even scars inflicted by meaningless enemies are worn upon the body like ornaments, then why is suffering a cause of harm to me, who impeccably strive to fulfill the great purpose?
단 네가 당어도 미카제 요로 다들 직전에 요로 빼러 버려서 가지 나빠오 인스러와 배는 릴라야 주 소자들 그 따들 요새 빠오들 땡이들은 와서 대 빠오서 개 말했어. 근데 수수 릴라 소자들도 깔래 자고이나 만좀 코와 뇨모만들 타다 뇨모들 갑자기 가지 자고 말까지 까지 따오래. 깔래 자고를 생각하시 들어왔어.
So in this verse, it's really talking about things that the silly people do. You see, all over the places, they are heroes, who kind of have certain symbols and status in the society because they have been defeating their fellow human, consider them as a hero. But that's nothing. And for the Dharma practitioners, our real enemy should be the affliction, and we should really work really hard to beat the true enemies. And we shouldn't, be a nonsense hero, but we should be a genuine hero who overcome our true enemy, which is affliction.
다 쇼가 쉽지 된다. 다 쇼를 냐라 동아 신라소 냐와 동바 신발라소바 라지 랑기 초와 잠시 셈바양 자 장당 차라 소비 네저나 로와 대시 다타 쯤에서
Thinking merely of your own livelihood, endure the harms of heat and cold,
단디 가서 통화를 와. 단 간도라. 나도 냐와도 돼. 깔리 대도치 장면을 가지고 나도 깔리 심아 쇼키 체제 제와는 군다 체제 나도 깔리 심아 자기로 와서 소소 센데게 또 그랬다. 다 때인데 대와 대치기 제도 당에 깔리 가지 자가 말이야. 깔리 딱 초를 자기 있어. 가지 생축박이 왔어.
So this is so obvious. Like the fishermen, we spend from 8 to 5 every day working just to meet our kind of daily needs. And we're working so hard. But then, on the other hand, how about we make effort and get inspired and really practice Dharma for not only just mere for this life, but for thousands of lives to come, for thousands and countless enemies. And for the sake of these, like sentient beings, not enemies, sorry, sentient beings, we should be, making this effort and should be working much harder.
어디 다 솔로가 주 시직 너 시직이 된다죠. 쇼지 나긴 다도빈 로와 뇨모 레도버 담자 강세 다니 땅 뇨모놈레 마토버 러스로.
When I promise to liberate migrating beings dwelling in the 50 directions as far as the ends of space from their afflictions, I myself was not yet free from the afflictions.
뭐지? 다 네가 딱 가도 레도 다 섬제 탐제 쇼케네 섬제 대화다 대버지 두만도 가도 그냥 쉬 자게로 왔어. 에나 알레 소소 뇨몰레 마타바 셴 뇨몰 트라스버다 로바치세다 파츠데로 왔어요. 근데 다 뭐 소소 뇨몰 트라치고 그래서.
So, of course, this is so true. Every morning we pray and we dedicate and we take a Bodhisattva vow saying we are going to free all the sentient beings. Of course, this is a good thing to really get inspired. But to start with, we first should tackle our affliction. And without really tackling the afflictions prevailing in our mind stream, we cannot really free other sentient beings from affliction. So here the advice is that first we should tackle our problem, our affliction, and then maybe, do it for others. Oh, lawless. Buddha Shakyamuni mentioned that the followers, the disciples, first you should tame your mind, and then you should, help others to tame their mind.
Oh, yeah. Dibachi Majaji, give up to Tobashi, Dipamaji, give up your cheese, Rangasam the Yonsandar, there's Haji Tembares.
As Buddha Shakyamuni mentioned the earlier two verses, we shouldn't engage in any negative deed. And we should engage in all virtuous actions. And we should, tame our mind. And this is a true practice of Dharma.
Okay. 다시로가니스 주신이다. 닭 세장 메시바 마와체다 뇨만. 대타 뇨모 좀발라 따든 심어 도브샤스.
Verse 42.
Thus, unaware of my own capacity, was it not somewhat crazy to restore like that? Since this is the case, I should never withdraw from my wishes.
다 네가 다 소소 저래. 다 소소도 사지 가월에 하고 먹다. 안다지 semje 시행게 짓던다고 시가도. 다는 소소 뇨모델 트라이얼 팀남이 쇼도체미. 깔리 끝내 자기 있어요.
So here, this is first like a question and then answer to saying, if I'm not sure where I am, how can I lead others? And so the point here is, first I'm going to really, I'm going to destroy my, enemy, the affliction, and then I can help others.
나도 샤지고 샘자도 샘지 탐줄라 펜토베시다 nga sanje komba to sho nyamna ko ya wendo was 콘돌라 펜토베시다 nga sanje komba to sho nga sanje komba 콘줄라 펜토지 nga sanje ko 가je 도나 sanje komba tom나 콘주 삼바도 뭐 쳤다 봐 시와인다 콘주 삼바나지 그래 주대한테 펜토제 도 그래 해서 이제 대로 왔어.
This is so true because when we pray, we say, for the sake of all sentient beings, may I attain enlightenment. And then you wonder why. This is true. Once you attain full enlightenment, then you attain the omniscience mind. And when you do that, then you would know the need of the sentient beings. You would know, what are the need and the levels and the disposition of the different sentient beings. And once you know that, then you can teach them, you can guide them appropriately. So once you attain full enlightenment, you have these amazing qualities. And with that qualities, you can lead other sentient beings to enlightenment. Therefore, it's really important to attain enlightenment first for the sake of all sentient beings.
다시 Shantideva shesamga tela dak shensaji kondu sune yetende nambatinde nyumoba nyumon jojem maton so os tende da ta jende tela samtani oya.
Number 43. I shall appear to this and present to them and shall meet them in battle. But afflictions such as these types destroy afflictions and not.
오단 디기나 투가나 tende hakoni ta nyumodela kadiyana nga ta jani jaga yes kadiyana shende chegmes.
And then this saying, therefore, I'm going to really tackle my affliction first. Knowing its kind of harmfulness, I'm going to be so determined to overcome my affliction.
What? That shapes the nation. Down the city, say, Chakam, Chatam, Dagungo, Chechan Lee, Nabakan the Numobi, Jala, Nabaramajagos, Tridata?
Yes.
I would rather be burned and killed and even have my head cut off than to ever down the enemy that is the afflictions.
Oh, Trinidata, Numu Kapta, Shambagoma, Nijegoma, Sancho Sam Govati, Tango, Labaja, Kambaja, Selection, Kadina, Bangames, and Yamlet Cheggy inside of Kanjus, Tamjas to show.
And so in this verse, we are making commitment, we are making determination. It's like a resolve here, saying, until I'm able to destroy my affliction with the practices of compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom emptiness, to really destroy the self-grasping, I'm not going to give up. Whatever comes, be whatever it is, take. I'm going to be so resolved to destroy my affliction. So you're making this very strong determination here.
Ordinary enemies, when they spell from one country, simply settle down with another and embrace it. And when their capability is recovered, they can return. But the way of this enemy, my afflictions, is different.
And so in this verse, it's saying that for common enemies, if you drive them away for now, surely they'll regroup, even re-strengthen and come back. But our affliction, if we are able to destroy it at once, it will never come back. It has no chances to reoccurring that affliction. And therefore, we shouldn't give up and be so determined to tackle the affliction.
Okay? That's shirudin. I'm going to say, Nomo Shira make a pan, Daye, Leather, Kandan Rojeva, Kandan Nina, Danush, Shacha Home, Lojan Dalla Timba, Mepes, Tumba, Mepa says.
46.
Afflictions, when abandoned by the eye of wisdom and dispelled from my mind, where will you go? Where will you dwell and return to harmony? Although this is so weak-minded, I have been reduced to making no effort.
Tandi Numote, Numo Caribon, Numo Pandandi, Numogi Caro. Numo Caribon, Numo Shera Mikabana, and the dances and what dances that can go. The pen that cash out. Because the owner of Carissa. 가지 다 저도 거라고 가지. 만주 단행 간도 질라인 봐서. 나서야 돼. 만주 셈나 샤바나지 간도 못 와서. 대 매와 또비가 로디가 나는 좀 셈나 간전 남아진 좀 받은 매와 소샤 그래서. 가지 뇨모 샤람 메가 방사지. 가지 뇨모도 반다 뇨모디 셰 매바 또비거니 방고래 세노시다. 빼놓으니 가래.
So here, basically what it's saying is that the afflictions be destroyed through the wisdom eye and through the wisdom insight. And once we really attend that wisdom insight, we can destroy our foe, the affliction.
배차샤바나 딱 갑대 갑라 먹지 다 미지 소소 예도 먹어와 소소 예도 먹어와 인자가 다 미지 와치 소소 다는 거지 된지 강사 텔미비 예도 먹어는데 로직 깨도 와있나 아니 예도 먹었는데 로도 고마워잖아 그래서
this is another example we can use here is if there is a person who appear to be very unpleasant to us. But if we replace that unpleasantness thinking with a pleasantness, if we change and make that unpleasant into a pleasant feeling, and then with that pleasant, the presence of that pleasant feeling had replaced that unpleasant or unappealing thought. And so here the point is, once we created through the wisdom insight, once we created a kind of antidote to destroy the affliction, and that antidote would replace that affliction in our mind.
간제
디르벨 더 짐부 유에벨 로저바 디 짐부 매벨 로게 봉투고 던지디 다미 로게 봉투고 있어
단테 예텔라 따베게 단테 제로와 예테 담에 토송와이나 예텔라 베베 단테 메와잖아
그러봐
하고서
제
이치라 베 콜메비 단테로와
노
콜메비 단테 근데 로칭엔 제로 다코 담에 가디 토나 콜메비 단테 메와잖아 이 이치다 이치.
So this is like a further explanation. Let's say, sorry, what's your name? George.
George.
We
talk about emptiness.
So this mistaken view, thinking George is intrinsically exist, George is inherently exist, right? And that distorted, perception can only be replaced through realizing the realizing the intrinsic, the lack of the intrinsic nature in George. Once we realized that George, lacks the intrinsic nature, and that realization replaced the initial belief that George is intrinsically exist. That did well. No. Does that make sense?
So maybe one, I think, simple way of saying it is there are two focal one object. There are two types of mind that are actually contradicted to each other. One is that grasps at the I, intrinsically existent I, that believes that is to exist, that has existence. The other mind is one that negates that existence. So they're complete opposites, right? One is saying this exists, and the other one is saying that it doesn't exist. Yeah, and so, but the focal object is the same. So one kind of a mind will destroy the other kind. So when the ignorant mind that says George intrinsically exists in I, George exists, and when another mind that says it doesn't exist, that mind that says it doesn't exist will negate the first type of mind. Is what?
Okay.
Translator.
Thank you.
근데 이제 다 조지 다 가도 남주 가도 나다지로 소설 앞에나 자지로 앞에 막아서 소소 대나 콘트롤 사이면 가도 나한테 대다 남주 노도 때 나가 말이 들어와. 맨날 마 조지 콘트롤 사야 되나? 디가 마 조지 나다 남주 조지 나한테 때 나가 말했어. 나 조지를 콘트롤 사야 되다 조지 은행이라는 좋아하는 거.
Also, we have a different a feeling to an object there's a difference between under influence of anger and under normal circumstances. For example, when I see George under the influence of anger, when I'm really angry at George, and I see him as he is inherently exist. I see him that there's intrinsic nature in George. On the other hand, when I see him normally, that kind of perception, the intrinsic nature, is not that solid and not that so obvious. No. And this is an example that His Holiness used.
I think George is a very good object. With Tibet, usually we use the base. And now we can change the object for the George. Okay? Then the Numo Shepena and George Rangun Chavan Numo race, Mariba race, dancing race, dancer. They Numo Rangun and George Rangun Matava Topilo in the Kadichena.
So, when we believe that a George is inherently exist, that is a kind of a mind affected by affliction or by self-grasping. And under the influence of self-grasping, we see George is inherently exist. But then, when we realized that the George is not inherently exist, and when we have that realization, and that, if you like, a thought or that mood of thinking replaces that the original thinking that George is inherently exist.
That George Rangun Matava Kanitona, George Rangun Matava Imbati, George Tende Bato Gord. George Tavati Tenataba. Tenju Madana Korangin Matava Toshin Marwas.
Then how do we know and how do we really establish that the George is not intrinsically exist? And we establish that through the concept of a dependent origination. Sometimes there's the interdependent nature. And once we really realize that the George is, relayed on the dependent origination, then we would immediately knew that it is designated, it's labeled, imputed. And through that, we developed that he is not intrinsically exist. And this reasoning of the emptiness by means of establishing the dependent origination is considered the most supreme the means or supreme method. So we say the dependent origination is the king of reasoning science.
And George Debatang Maris, Mother Tende Mission Nakotan, Tende Yenza, Tende Taba Yenza, Rangun Chabayo Maris.
So usually we develop this kind of logic. We say George is not inherently exist. This is because George is a dependent origination. Or why is dependent origination? It's imputed, it's labeled, it's designated.
You understand?
Did you get that?
Karo. This is tended to be Talambes. Karo.
The tended to be not bad.
Karo. Loto no chiva.
I'm not long. Now you just have the don't buy mental cells. Timaba. Oh, you just have the don't buy mental cells. Don't buy then good at the
no. Anyway, can I Jeremo Chegia and the Loto no so. Don't you do a Talambes one? Tended to be Talambes. Tended to na, don't you tola, Tanya was.
Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned in the three principle, the path, and saying once you understand the dependent origination, then you would understand the nature of emptiness.
사실 소리가
Can you say?
때는 좋아인다 동아래스 랑은 좀 동아래스 제가 때는 좋아인다 랑은 좀 동아래스
And also Nagarjuna, in his the fundamental wisdom text, mentioned clearly that because the phenomena exist through dependent origination, as a result, they're equal to emptiness, lacking the intrinsic nature. Why, things are subject to nature of emptiness? Because they're lacking that inherent nature. Or the intrinsic nature. Why? Because every phenomena that we see are kind of dependent arising or the dependent origination.
다 땡주세다 그래 땡줄라 땡줄 라바당 전문이 그러더라. 저러니 와. 땡주 라바디 나도 진짜 땡주. 솔레라고 왔어. 나도 배나 거시 오잖아. 벌레한테 부모형 그랬어. 보면은 부모 샤사요 말아 왔어. 아니 jel라드는 저었어. 제트면은 저거 용 말아 왔어. 배나 부고도 요한테 부모들 아마스. 아니 들이 부모들 그런 부고도 가로 어디 부고도 요한테 들이 부모들 아마 다시 와봤어. 근데 진짜 땡주 라바르던데.
And then when we look at the dependent origination, there are two levels. One is the gross level of dependent origination. The other is the subtle level. The gross level of the dependent origination is more some of the cause and effect, or the, for example, because of these that arises. We talk about a child, relating to his or her mother. Because of the mother, there's a child. This is at one level of the gross dependent origination. Another example of the gross dependent origination is from a different point of view. Because of it's here, there's a there. Depending this side of the phenomena and objects, depending from the other side. Because of father, you establish the mother, so on. That's a gross level. Then there's a subtle level of a dependent origination. Are you able to infer the gross level of a dependent origination? Another example is like we say this is really like a large person. And because we say this is a large person, because we compare that to a smaller person, right? So the essence in that gross level is the law of relativity or the relevancy. Because we infer a kind of the quality by comparing this to another quality. So that's the analyzing dependent origination from the gross level. Are you able to understand this?
It's easy, right?
When we say this is a beautiful tune, beautiful sound, we are comparing that to another. So it's a relative to another, and then we're making this judgment. So they are kind of interrelated, interdependent. Therefore, you guys here, if you really wanted to understand the nature of emptiness, the wisdom emptiness, you should really start doing so by studying the law of the dependent origination. Once you understand the dependent origination, then you will understand how emptiness is established.
Okay.
We usually say because the phenomena are depending on the dependent origination, and they are lacking intrinsic nature.
That's 참고해서.
And then, if we move to the discuss about the subtle level of dependent origination, here we are primarily talking about the designating or imputing. We say George. George is a collection of the 5 aggregates. We first George is dependent on the collection of the 5 aggregates, and then we impute him as a George.
Okay, I think now maybe stop here. Too much go there. 배차하셨는데 시도 메토데선 이마장으로 와. 그님은 니마치 차서 말어. 그거는 그 뒤는 그제 춘주들 니바 냠데 갈갈갈갈가지 구차로. 그 니마치 차로 말어. 남친 이제 동도 보이나. 신그 맞아. 때문에 세워 차로 도 그 니마치 차와 말고. 갈갈갈갈 코치 남친 이제 동도에 차로. 네 진짜 sometimes.
So another example is the flower here, or even the weather. And the flower wouldn't really dry up immediately tomorrow, certainly. It will dry up gradually, and it's all this like a chemical, depending on all these chemicals, in the flower, and that's affecting its qualities. And so one is depending on the other, and this is what we're talking about, the law of dependent origination, that the change in the flower is constant, it's constantly changing. But for us, we don't see this, but it's being built up gradually because it's depending on these all different elements. The weather too, weather doesn't become cold certainly. It's kind of built up. It's depending on a lot of other factors and then building up this really cold temperature.
Okay, 다 되는 다 네가 가는 묘모세야 돼. 묘모 계세게 이해될 미네. 대예도 원하는 예도 먹어도 묘모도 마음에 와서 또 그래서 봐.
And so the essence advice in the verse 46 is for the affliction. We can really destroy these afflictions by relying on the wisdom. That really sees the affliction being lacking the intrinsic nature. So basically saying you can replace a afflicted mind with an unafflicted mind. Because initially Geshe says this morning that a two conflicting mind cannot coexist in either this or that. So you can replace that kind of afflicted mind through a maybe cleansed mind. So that's what is the advice we're getting from the verse 46.
Okay, that's 17. 다 녀모 17 녀모 남네 릴라만이 온소 가리 녀모 남네 릴라만이 온소 라만 바나만 델레 젠나가만 다도 가네 로와근네 제 단데 젠제 대시레 니나 지봉 시제 좀바데 도메냐다 달라 냐소 남서 제데 노르시스 간제 와다치로.
If these afflictions do not abide within objects, not in the collection of sense powers, between the two nor elsewhere, then where do they abide and how do they harm all migrating beings? They are like an illusion. Thus I should dispel the fear within my heart and strive for the sake of wisdom. For no meaning, why am I harmed in hell, and so forth.
다 네가 가지 묘모세대 라지 터대나 빠요 말 고기주 당해 말. 대다 묘모 빠요리 묘모 코나 라지 터요 말이. 아니 dag 수보나라 요 말, dag 요 말 간지 가서 묘모대 랑도 저거 말이 묘모대 빠요리 매와 열세 다 매와서 열세는 거라.
Here again the advice is that affliction is destroyable. This is because affliction is not inherently exist, and it's not inherently exist. Therefore, it is possible that we can dispel or we can destroy affliction, and therefore we shouldn't get discouraged. So that's advice.
다 가서 쉽게 된다스. 다 쉽게 시작된 거 보시러. 아래 대타 대타 남서 지게 셔봐요. 라바디비 쳇든 베버셔. 멤비 맹어 만년 나 멘타기. 아니 Shugu Nepalaso Kalayu, Shantu Shubalan Juba, Poetima Leo Shabos, Tenjiza, oh yeah.
Therefore, having thought about this, I should make effort for the sake of accomplishing the trainings explained. If the doctor's instructions are ignored, how will a patient in need of treatment be cured by the medicines?
Okay, Tandi Gardana Kanji, but Nasa de Chavala and maybe Arch and Yagun was. Maybe Arch and Yamay of Sanachana Kanji, Nasa de Trap it, Deva Chiran Yang Dua. The Chana tended there was Sanji Kuma Changes, Sanji Kuma Togona, and the changes of Lava de Yango.
So, in this verse, it's advising to us that like a patient follow the instruction of the doctors, we should follow the instruction of the Buddha to attain enlightenment. If patient wanted to get better, he has to follow the instruction and advices of the doctors. Likewise, if we wanted to attain full enlightenment, we have to follow the teaching of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And therefore, we start by taking care of our mind. We should be very conscientious about our mind. And we should make effort and do our best to make sure that our mind does not fall under the influence of affliction.
Okay. It's short explain. Do you have any question? No, we can do this question because time almost passed. Sorry. Questions? Yes.
My understanding of samsara is that it's possible for us to be reborn in any of the realms, the 6 realms. And you mentioned that our human life is precious, that if, for example, we were born as an animal, we wouldn't have a chance to gain spiritual realizations. So if we were born into the animal realm, what chance is there of us leaving the animal realm? If, for example, they're not able to practice giving or engage in virtuous actions, how can we leave the animal realm?
I'm going to summarize the question in case people at the back didn't hear it. And the essence of the question is that once you fall into the lower realms, and say animal realms, then what are the chances for us to attain the higher realms? Because in the animal realm, in the all other lower realms, we would not be able to engage in the practice of generosity and so on, the causes that leads to higher realms. And yes, if you say you were born as a cow and you had no chance really to accumulate merits and generate all the causes that leads to reborn in a human being. And because of that, we should take care of this precious human birth and to really make sure we don't fall down. Because you know that under the animal kind of realm, there is no chances of creating merits and causes for enlightenment and a higher rebirth. So that's one thing, first point. The second point here is we have been in samsara for many aeons, for many lives, and we have accumulated both negative and positive deeds and merits. And so because of a certain kind of result of our action, say maybe the good deeds that we did in the past, we are right now enjoying human birth. And then certain result, if we were born as an animal right now, and when that negative deed is consumed, then there are other good deeds that we have done in many lifetimes. And when you meet the red condition, you reborn as a human. You come back to human birth again. And the essential point here is we have created so many karmas, both good and bad. So when certain karmas take us to the lower realm, then other good karmas, you have created in the past, that still, when it's met with the red conditions, take us back to better birth.
Okay, does that make sense? You understand? 나도 배나 깨워라 도마에 말이야. 나도 배나 나주 날라게 was. 나도 샘지 차상 나도 파마 제 많이 와 주요 말이야. 가나 깨워라 도마면다. 샘지가 나도 가마 제 뉴아래 해서
So the very important point to understand here is our birth, or our kind of a birth in the samsara is beginningless. We have been in samsara from a very beginningless, and there's a countless of life. And for that reason, when we establish loving kindness and compassion to sentient being, we say we should be really kind to all the sentient beings. Why? Because all the sentient beings have been our parents at some point of our life. Because our birth in our existence in samsara is beginningless, and for that we use the same reason for practicing loving kindness to all the sentient beings. So that's the very reason that our existence in samsara has been from the beginningless. So that's the logic we use as well.
대단한 것도 지금 내솔라 깨나 양 내솔라 다 요래 들어와. 다 좀 매워드는 말이지. 나 양치 내솔라 야 타와 있나 양 깨와지 가르치려는 양 티컬 개와 말다 양 맞지는 것들이 요래 들어와.
And therefore, if we fall in lower realms in the future, and then there are actually opportunities to reborn in higher realms, because our life has been in samsara from beginningless, and we have created a lot of other virtual deeds and merits. When that met with the red condition, it takes us back to a higher birth.
Yes, yeah.
In New York, we pass a lot of beggars. If we do not give to them, are we breaking a vow by not being generous?
The question is, in New York, we have a lot of beggars. If we do not give them the beggars, are we breaking Bodhisattva vow?
Yeah, by not being generous.
Or by not giving the...
generous. 시당 treset 인심지 잘라되게 뵙게 참 말더라. 가리 샘티니치 가로 동선 그 빼고 인심지 tre게 뵙게 자꾸 말더라. tre는 가도 tre 나가 말어 왔어. 나 같이 tre게 지 소송은 지 여봐이나? 소소라 지 소소라야 벤조 때 만나고 지 tre 답시 요나 tre. 근데 인제 또또 똥 가로. 진배 뭐 똥섬 똥이 샘바들이 들어와. 진배 피 tre도 진배 제라 그러고. 진방군데 샘들어. 시바데 똥이 샘바.
Yes, when we this is you're referring to the practicing generosity. If we look at the what is the nature of a generosity, it's very important to understand. It's more kind of a mental level than a physical level. The practicing generosity, especially the perfection of generosity, entails not attaching to things and phenomena, being free of attachment to objects and to beings. The essence in the practice of generosity is really be totally free of attachment and grasping, to things. And so this is really the most important practice. Then, on the second hand, we give the things to other sentient beings. This is what we're talking about, the jimbeze, the substances of the generosity practices. And if you are in a position to share your resources and the substances and materials, of course that's good. But the essential practices of generosity entails you're freeing your mind, being very attached to things, and also the spirit of giving. the generating this spirit of giving or offering or disparting from your mind. For example, if you give a piece of bread to a homeless person, although you did actually the action by giving the bread, but if your mind did not really engage in this like giving, the spirit of giving and being detached, it still is not a proper practice. And therefore, you cannot meet the need of all the sentient beings purely by giving. But what the important practice for us is generating this spirit of giving. And that's the important practice of generosity.
So in other words, it's a mind that wishes to give is a definition of generosity.
And so we say the nature of the generosity is this spirit in which like a giving spirit or the mind of a giving, wish to give. And in other texts it mentioned about detaching the important. Don't seem to do about chapamel. The mind being totally free of sin. What? Miserliness.
Okay. Then is the kaji chang pali madana changate.
Simple, yeah. Therefore, not giving things, doesn't automatically equal to not practicing generosity. The important is, your mind, the training at a mental level. If you really know how to practice Buddhism properly, if you know the secret of the practices, then everything you get turned into Dharma practice, including consuming meal, can be a Dharma practice. And for Buddhist practices, not everything has to be at a physical level. No, not everything has to be giving or sharing. One example of how we really practice in our daily life, when we consume meal, and before we consuming meal, we make offering. This to your root gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas at one level. And then there are tons of germs in our body. By really thinking, I wanted to feed all these germs. Germs were I'm just making sure. I couldn't believe myself, certainly. Before we consume, we make the intention saying, I'm going to feed all these millions and thousands of germs. And if you consume your food, you're already engaging in the practices of generosity. And then you would see the practitioners and Tibetan lamas, after they completed their meal, they leave a few behind, and they make a certain shape and do prayer and dedicate it, and then they ask someone to throw this away. And what they're doing is they're actually practicing generosity against the hunger ghost. They're really visualizing and offering this food to the hunger ghost. So they're actually practicing generosity here. And therefore, in Buddhism, true practice really is at a kind of a mental level, at a spiritual level, but not at a physical level. And when we, say we wanted to do a genuine practices, we really have to do it at a kind of much deeper spiritual or mental level. This is where the practice occurs. When we make water offering, making water offering is an act of Dharma practices. But without, at a deeper kind of mental level, if you didn't have the proper attitude and proper motivation and so on, just mere action of making water as an offering doesn't work. I'm not, criticizing the water offering here. I'm not referring to here, but generally, when you make a water offering or when you make any other offerings, your intention, your motivation is really important. If you just make water offering so that people can see that you are making water offering, and if you do with this kind of motivation, your practices of water offering wouldn't work. It's useless. But on the other hand, when you do that with the proper intention, motivation, and so on, it's a very powerful practice. Did you Kurang Shal Jinda Pigo or Gala Pigo? Jinda Page and a Gala in the chicken Akone, and it that Tiri Chuya, Kajana Jite Chuga Teleshows. One of the example or the illustration of such, the water offering and the intention, we use this story of a Kadamba master, Geshe Tenley. And one day, this great master was expecting one of his patrons or the sponsor visiting him. And so he got up really early, cleaned his room, and made a beautiful water offering. And then as he sat down and started praying, suddenly he realized that he did that water offering, just to please his sponsor, his patron. And he felt, this kind of a disgust in himself. And he immediately went out and picked up a dust, a full palm of dust, and throw that on the water offering. And then his master, the root guru, was meditating in another retreat. And certainly he, started feeling something. And people asked, "What happened to you?" He said, "It's wonderful. Today, one of my students, this Geshe Tenley, was able to overcome the 8 worldly Dharma practices by throwing, this dust on his worldly actions, because his teacher felt or was able to aware what just happened. That it's a very significant spiritual realization. It's because I couldn't translate directly that word saying that he threw the dust in the face of the 8 worldly dharmas, meaning he was able to overcome the influences of the 8 worldly dharmas.
데네다 다 나도 되나 그야 그 연장을 텔라시고 왜 하지 말라 그러. 문에 자야 돼그 그놈 네 그놈도 야보면 내가 돼 야보면 텔라시고 그러.
So for the ordinary beings, they'll be, disgusted to see someone throwing dust on the offering. But for spiritual practitioners, they see that he was able to overcome the self-cherishing mind or the self-grasping mind. He ceased to follow that kind of afflicted mind. And so it's a great achievement from a spiritual practitioner's point of view.
대단히 단다 랍돼야 돼. 아주 레카 액션데 내가 전부 다 레더라데 내가 제대로 말 소소소 샘바들라고 그래서 삼다다.
And so I'm making the point here, action of course, to a certain degree is important, but it's not the ultimate. Action is not the ultimate or the ultimate goal. It's our spiritual progress, the spirit or the intention, the motivation at a much kind of a subtle level. The change in that is far more important than just a mere representation of our expressions by action.
And 야 조시바자 그마 산제 샤주 걸었다 야가 야보지야 산제라야 고다치바다 샬랍 자와야 말레스 and 자보데서 나타가 트리페 무슨 야보체다 산제가라 게사야 뭐거리 섬코테 데르스 and 디 롬베 달아야 야 방고지 들어왔 근데 방고디가 다 데링고네 전에 자보데가 야보체서 다 산제랑 거네 조업이네 그런 손은 싸서 좀 그지다가 제르왔 근데 주마 근데 산제가 게사도 뭐ati 방고들은 뭐도 아니 야보 진다가 망고 제다 코랑기 가로 딱 만들어서 가는 거 지대 취지 얘는 코랑 망고 버려서 거기까지 끌어 죽성으로 와서 로소 그 따라 가래져야 거기서 말아 망고 버려서.
And you hear a similar story in the time of Buddha Shakyamuni. One day a great king paid a visit to Buddha Shakyamuni and offered him meals and hosted him for a great feast. At the same time, there was a beggar below that monastery. And so after consuming the meal, Buddha said his dedication prayer. And the king was thinking, I made such great meal, I made everyone so happy, I threw such a good party, so I'm sure Buddha is going to dedicate the merit for my virtual action. But instead, Buddha dedicated his merit to that dedication or admiration done by the beggar. Because when the king offered his meal, he was thinking, oh, I'm great, I'm able to do that, that must be a really great thing. At the same time, the beggar saw the king was going toward the monastery with a lot of offerings, and he felt so inspired. And he kind of rejoiced. That in that action thinking, this is such a wonderful thing the king was able to do, to making offering to Buddhas and creating a lot of good collections. And he dedicated, saying, may I also be able to do such a thing in my future life? And Buddha immediately realized that. So Buddha dedicated his, rejoiced and dedicated after the beggar's kind of inspiration rather than the king's action. Why? Although the king is the one who's kind of supplying the materials and doing the action, but he didn't have the proper intention and motivation, so it doesn't make sense. On the other hand, the beggar, who are totally deprived of the materials, yet able to have this very powerful rejoice, and so he accumulated all the merits. So the Buddha, dedicated that merit.
대단 강조 남비 주셔야 돼. 시당 실록이 남겨야다. 조조 셈내치야 돼. 셈내치야. 대단 강조 로소 땅고 말에 에 가지 셈그 땅에 셈 삼만 남나 지나. 다 주인 남당은 야 보용 거예요.
Therefore here as a Buddhist, our practice is much more kind of at a mental level, at can you say spiritual level or not? At a mental level. And so when you are able to create a really pure, like a mind, then, your practice is whatever you do is very powerful.
아니 가도 치와다 남바세 돼.
And in Tibetan terminology, we say Nangpa, the inner followers, meaning Buddhist, and the Chipa, meaning the outer followers or non-Buddhist. And we distinguish between the Buddhist and non-Buddhist in terms of in and outer. This is because we believe, as a Buddhist, our kind of practice is much more about our inner mind, transforming our mind and so on. Whereas a lot of other spiritual practices, they involve a lot of kind of external things, a lot of outer aspect of the life, and that's how we usually distinguish. And we can, as I mentioned, that our practices, involve a lot of mental. All of them is about changing our mind, transforming our heart, and so on.
Okay. Then. Yes.
First of all, when I talked about this conscientiousness, mindfulness, awareness, these three the mental faculties are pervasive in to all sentient beings. This kind of the mental faculties are the three of the 51 mental faculties we usually talk in our mind and the mental activities. They are exist in all sentient beings. What are they? As a reminder, if we talk about guarding our three doors, body, speech, mind, and first of all, I make this conscientious, saying I shouldn't be engaging in negative action. So I shouldn't be doing that. That's you're using the conscientious mind. The conscientious mind. I shouldn't be doing that. And then the second level, the mindfulness, as remembering that you're not going to do that. You remember, okay, you already created that mind saying, I shouldn't be doing that. Then you remember that. And your mindfulness kind of reminds you, say, you shouldn't be doing that. And then the next level of the mental faculty is the awareness. And when your mindfulness, forgets, and when you're about to do something, the awareness mind immediately comes saying, oops, you shouldn't be doing that. The awareness is kind of watching at you. So you first, and so this is my version. That's how I. So the consciousness, you created a, concept. You good or bad, you shouldn't be doing. You should be doing that. You create that, with consciousness, and then the mindfulness, you remember that, right? And then the awareness is when you are being swayed or becoming off track. The awareness kind of takes you back. So that's these are the three different types of the mental faculties, and this exists in all the sentient beings. And these are like basically a type of consciousness. Yes, consciousness, and because they have different roles, these like there are three different. There's the mental activities or different consciousness, and each has a different role. So we give them different names, like consciousness, mindfulness, and awareness, because they're doing different things. Another example is alcohol, the consuming alcohol. And if you believe that consuming alcohol is bad for you and that you shouldn't be drinking alcohol, and then the conscientiousness saying, I shouldn't be drinking alcohol, that's kind of the conscientiousness level. And then the mindfulness, remembering that, saying, oh, I shouldn't be drinking alcohol. That's, mindfulness. And awareness is the mind, which is more like the watchman or the monitor. The awareness is really monitoring whether you're remembering this or whether you're kind of staying on the track or not. So these each different mind kind of activities, they're doing different things. And mindfulness or temper is like the memory. It's more about the memory, remembering what you did, what you pledged. Awareness is like when you're making mistake, then your mind immediately knew that you're making mistake. That awareness, in English, is much better than Tibetan. You're aware of. And then the Pagyu, the consciousness, is that you know that you shouldn't be doing that. So that realization, I shouldn't be doing that. And that realization or thought is a consciousness. So are you able to distinguish between these three different mental faculties now? So if we look at the practice of a bodhicitta, and initially there's a bodhicitta is great, we should really practice it, and we shouldn't breach our commitment. And so here the consciousness is the guarding side of the mind, saying I shouldn't break my bodhisattva vow. So this guard, like the alertfulness, this guard comes with your mind, and that's the consciousness. And then the mindfulness, the side of the mind is reminding you constantly you shouldn't be breaking bodhisattva vow. So that's a mindfulness. And then the awareness is when you sometimes even whether you're breaking or not, the mind which watches over you, watching whether you're breaking this or not. So that's awareness. So there are three different elements of a mental faculties. And in Buddhist science, or the science of mind, we said there are 51 different mental faculties. And we give a different name to the different, the role of the mind, because the mind, although is as one base, and each has a different role, and so these names are giving to their different role. And so one example is, the mind has a, mind within the mental faculty has a different function. Sometimes you have this urge to go to somewhere. Sometimes there's an urge to eat something. So mind has a different functions. Okay? Maybe there's time for one more question, if you have any. Yes.
I have a question in relation to the story that you brought up earlier about one of the masters who was meditating and he offered his left hand to the devil. It's just brought up a concern that I've had. I'm very new to meditation. And I've heard that there's some meditators, sometimes they are confronted with like horrible visions, hallucinations,
Why it doesn't happen? Or
Why does it happen?
It doesn't happen,
Those
okay.
types of experiences happen as a result of deep meditation. And thirdly, how could you prevent that from happening?
Did everyone hear the question, or do you need repeat? You heard? Repeat? And basically, I'm going to shortcut it. The question is why, for the meditators, there's an obstacle, either through hallucination and whatever. Why it's happened, and how can we stop that? What are the prevention? Because this is a story going back to Shariputra's, the obstacle through the evils. This one, sila daniel sheripu ani jimbu ge parol ya ta kan nyamne jibe ko la baje chumres ani nge di tinde mangu kunyu yes pesa sam dang ran zu jing nyamne ji ne gwam ge ne tinde gwam ge be ka la ta ji ani na tinde ta ji baje tinde mangu go ba gwam ge tu zamba baje tinde mangu ta khase damade thoya sunde damade shara ni go ba di khache ne shew yo res chwa 당구de 니부데 tinde chumbe ka ya ani dogba khare yo re de ji tapshi khare yo res
시다 텐데 파치 쇼와데 양 코랑게 지 레나마라 마모사나 텐데 파치 때 쇼와데 양 레모모 다르 버들 용거르스 코랑게와 톱치 뭐 제가 파치 때 지금 아니 뭐게와 톱치 뭐 다르 버들 용거르스
아디 다야 전다 용거
다야 용거 다 되고 곱쳐는데 봐 배나 다좀 배나 지금 고나야 주보고 지 되고 뭐 다르 버들 용거르스
저디 저한테 가르치는 용거를
저들이 알레 메시도다 파치로 와데 파치 용거를 봐 바지 가리는 데는 가래서나 추세야 시당 빼면도 랍첨보지로 와 샤월랍 첨부 쉬외달 샤월랍 첨부 쉬월라 당가도 바지 거디네 까지 요 초초로 들어와 안에 텔레지 마강에 두트네게 지 바지 간치 가디네 제대로 딱 이거 들어와 대용 거스 대직 직선다
So the first question was why these kind of obstacles happen for practitioners. Why it's happening? Because engaging in the practice of Dharma is a such kind of sacred, such grand, like a project, if you like. And there are a lot of, non-human ghosts who really wanted to create a problem. Who, because it's such a kind of precious and such a powerful, activity, meditation and so on. And there are beings who wanted to stop that, who maybe distorted views through their distorted vision and so on. And therefore we have all these obstacles, the obstacles coming through the non-humans.
And
then Geshe earlier said, this is one reason, humans, non-humans who wanted to create obstacles so that you wouldn't, attain what you desired for. That's one. Then another reason, also, when you look at the story of the Shariputra, what I thought was that we have accumulated a lot of negative deeds, a lot of negative karma in the past, and so these karmas are being yielded. Because we created so many negative karmas, and so this at some point these karmas has to come out, right? And so when, for example, Shariputra must have accumulated a lot of negative karmas before he, attained spiritual realization. Maybe his previous life, he had a lot of negative karmas. So these karmas might have, come out, or yield, or repent this karma. And so these karmas, that's, it's another explanation of where this problem manifests.
다좀봐 니나 다좀봐도 근데 ngo나요. 그래서 가지나나 당마 다좀봐 마도가 레트서 근데 레트 디바다 샤메 완자 ngo나야 되게 디바 다로 그래서도 가지.
And so I heard, also read in other sources for the hearers and self-realizers engage in meditation and advancing their practices. Sometimes one of the common obstacles that they had is get headache. It's very severe headaches. And this is, as mentioned in the sutra, that before engaging in their dharma practices in their previous lifetimes, they have committed a lot of negative deeds, and some of them they were not able to purify through confession before they engaged practices. Now, because we believe in the cause and effect, so when you engage in this kind of negative deeds, now its result is being repented. So that's one explanation. But then, through this kind of minor headaches, these negative, the giant negative karmas that you created, and otherwise there could be very severe consequences. But then now you're engaging in the practices. This negative karma manifests in a very minor way, but really to purify the entire giant negative karma. So that could be one explanation.
어디그래서 라그래서 소용부터 잡 맞죠네. 먼저 자살라 로조 제비가라 미카제 로조 제비가라야 나용와 안에 sem바도 매 sem바가로 따지고로 먼저 차로여서 가르잖아. 다 텔라야 로조 제가 소대 소놈데 야보 메레스. 안에 소놈 사고레스 투송레스.
For our contemporary practitioners, we also meet with a lot of obstacles. Our teachers usually say these obstacles there because we didn't have enough merit to practice Dharma at our monastery in India. When the students are engaging in debating, engaging in the study of the profound subject, and there are a lot of obstacles. They get all kind of illness and obstacles appear. And then our teachers say, because you are having all these problems, all these hindrances, the reason is you didn't have enough kind of merits really engage in these profound, sacred practices. And so going back to your second question, how do we overcome these obstacles? As you engage in collecting merits, engage in creating merits, and this will be a good antidote to overcome the affliction. Problems and obstacles.
아니 곰제베가라 나선 담라 들레기도나 아니 곰데 양주 우투마제와치 양 지오잡 대란 섬도 내요 말스
안 제비게는 클라지베게 보다
베네 양 섬도 셴바당로 야네 셴바로 니제로 좀 다소 곰제야가 섭지 지오잡으레스 양 우투테 대 마데와치 양마나 지도 좀 써바는 답 아니 지금 들지오레스로
when you are engaging in meditation, and when you have or you believe you have this kind of obstacles, and then you should cease to meditate and change your subject of meditation. If you're having some kind of obstacles while you're doing a certain practices, and you can maybe change, you stop that. Instead of doing what you're doing right now, you engage in practice of compassion, meditating on loving kindness, or you're making prayers and making supplications to deities like Tara. And through this kind of actions, you can purify these obstacles.
Okay. I think now we stop. It's 5:05. Anyway, thank you so much for all of you. I'm very happy. Thank you for the Tenzin for translator.
Thank you.
And thank you for my dear friends. I'm very happy with all of you. Then I'm also very honored to come here, study with you. Then also thank you for all of you support the Shantideva Center. This center is your center. This is not someone's center. This is the center. Therefore, if you say we say benefit others, also if you support the center, this is you benefit others. Because we have the center, we able to we able to also benefit for a lot of beings, a lot of people. Therefore, everyone, thank you for support the center, and also continue center everyone help whatever they want. Also, you guys study, continue. This text is great text to study bodhicitta. Then you guys also read couple chapters. Then you can, you have some study group. Then you can discussion. Okay, you can read also another book. Then 10 people have the 10 different understands. Therefore, you can discussion which one more makes sense. Okay, like discussion, debate like that. They continue. I always say, don't push too much, don't stop. I think Westerns like push too much, then stop. This is not work. Slowly. When you're tired, stop. But don't stop, however. Okay? Just, and we say, like not to rush to resort. Slowly. Continue. Take easily. Right? Therefore, how much you can't. I believe all of you very great. Here, difficult to time, a weather, a language, but still you very effort. It's very wonderful. Thank you very much. Even we get one person benefit, it's great, very good. Okay? Then I mentioned, the real practice is your mind. Try to, today we discussion, then also you guys think about that. Is hard, it's true or not. Okay? Like that, then that's it. Okay? Thank you. Then we do some prayers. We have special Shantideva center, Shantideva text. Also we have some dedication for Shantideva. Now today we dedication for, we all create the very great positive karma. We dedication for the, long life His Holy Dalai Lama, Lama Subramanichi, so for our teachers. Now also benefit for peace award, religious harmony, all the sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, happy, whatever they wish to come. Thank you.
Page 10. Page 14. May all beings everywhere plagued by sufferings of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Page 11, Dedication Prayers. Page 12. Finally, we have Mixema from page 5. Lord